Hey guys, Chris from Hot Tech Tips here. A little fuzzier than normal. Uh, so this is day 4 of quarantine for me. Uh, I'm sure you saw me on a few different podcasts, be it Haunt Weekly, Code Yellow, all that, talking about COVID. And it's sneaky. I'm fine. Just a little bit of a fever here and there, but nothing major. Waiting on test results to find out the full extent of things. But long story short, you can do everything for prevention. You can have your masks, your gloves, not that you really need gloves, but your hand washing, sanitization stations, your social distancing, all that. It's kind of, the whole zombie movie concept isn't too far off in transmission. It's when you least expect it. When you sit down to have dinner with a friend following local and state guidelines, but you're within 6 foot from more than 10 minutes of someone who's confirmed positive a day later or a couple days later, well, there you go. Asymptomatic spread, still, jury's kind of out on that one. But yeah, you're face to face talking with somebody for 6 hours. For within 6 feet for more than 10 minutes, which the average dinner service is, 20, 30, 40, 50 minutes. You're well within that. So, quarantining. Honestly, catching up on some work around the house, cleaning up a little bit, doing some paperwork, and it brought a lot of things to mind of contingency planning for haunts for this year. We've got a lot of planning going on the safety side of things, prevention, which is wonderful. Now is actually about a month ago is the time for that. Now is the time for that as well. But now it's also time to start thinking in the decisions of, are you going to open the show this year? Not only can you open the show, but what happens when you do open the show? Because as you've seen, numbers may be manipulated one way or the other, but there's a whole lot of people testing positive across the country. And it is our demographic that's that 20 to 30 something group that we target that comes to your haunt that are the ones carrying it right now. They might not necessarily be getting really sick from it, but they're testing positive and they are carrying. It's a good and a bad thing. It's a good indicator showing that our demographic wants to get out and go to shows. It's a bad thing because our demographic is getting out a little early in some places and obviously transmitting the virus. So a few things to think about. Your contingency for quarantining. Specifically, this one's looking at the owners, the head managers, and also even the home haunters. What happens if that key person, maybe it's you, maybe it's your actor manager, maybe it's your tech manager, your makeup lead person, your seamster, is that PC? Your haunt mom, per se, for the group, or just that jack of all trades. This really is going to affect those medium and smaller size professional shows. My show, if I was to have to quarantine for 2 weeks right before the show opened, I love my crew, but I'm the tech guy. And I'm not sure the show would get open, or at least it would be a drastically different show, because I do all the lighting and sound, and there's a couple people that know a thing or two about it, but that's not their specialty, and I'll admit I've never trained them on that before. So maybe this is a year, not that you want to increase your exposure, but to at least do some basic cross-training on people. And this could happen at any time. God forbid someone's in a car accident, or unexpected things happen, family emergencies happen. It's just odd and unusual that a emergency that's unexpected can sideline somebody for 2 weeks out of the blue. And again, that's just a quarantine period. That's not even if you're sick, just a quarantine. 2 weeks in haunt season, that's, it's half your month. That could be half your year right there. Even worse if it's a build up to haunt season. And, that the Hell Week, just imagine, and you know what Hell Week is. It's that week before you open when you're at the haunt almost 24/7. I legit sleep there a couple nights of Hell Week every year. Just imagine, suddenly you're not there for Hell Week. Is your show going to open? And can you afford your show to get to Hell Week and then not open? So something to think about is, have your backups in place. If you're a manager, make sure you have an assistant manager, and make sure that person can manage if you're not there. So many places, so many stores even, the store manager does everything and the assistant manager just does a couple things the store manager doesn't do. That assistant needs to be able to do everything the manager does. They might not be as smooth, they might not be as great at it as a manager, but they need to be able to take over and keep your show, keep your business running. And I think a lot of people are learning that. Haunts were not like corporate America, or where I come from, fire and EMS. The chain of command is not necessarily as clean to step up in. In fire and EMS, the chief isn't there, the assistant or deputy, or the captain or lieutenant. Whoever steps up takes command and runs the show. In an office situation, your boss might be quarantined, but they're just on Zoom from home yelling at you from there. Haunts, on the other hand, you can't go up a ladder and hang some lights or paint something or aim some swamp lasers, whatever it may be, from home. That the quarantine just puts you out of commission. There are a few things you can do. You can work on your marketing, you can work with your sponsors, interviews over the phone, coordination over the phone, stuff like that. That's great. Web presence, your social media, monitoring your website, your ticket sales. You can do some of that from home, but I'm talking about the meat and potatoes, the Hell Week tools in your hand sort of stuff, and also the operational when the show opens. So that's one huge thing to think about. On the quarantine topic, something else to plan for is your scenes. How many actors do you have in a scene? This could vary wildly. If it's a large walkthrough haunt, you might not have more than 1 or 2 actors per scene. However, if you're a trail haunt like us and you only have a few scenes, but the scenes are huge and fleshed out, you might have 5, 6, 7, 8 actors in a scene area. And telling those actors between groups to socially distance themselves all night long, every night, even when the snack cart comes through, the bottles of water come through, all that, that's going to be tough. And even further, you have control at your place of business, at the haunt. But after they leave the lot at the end of the night, a lot of the actors, they're going out, they're having, a drink, they're going to a party. They're social, and haunting is a social thing, and that's part of why this industry is lovely, because us misfits and outcasts have a wonderful place to meet up, hang out, and work with other misfits and outcasts and have a lot of fun while doing it, and a great way to make friends. But you got to keep in mind, if per se you have that clown tent with 5, 6, 7, 8 clowns in it, and one of them tests positive on Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever the next week, you might be down an entire scene of actors. And especially if that is like a dedicated troupe, like we have a clown troupe. Love the guys. They have the golf cart where they do tricks on it, all these noisemakers. Lovely. And they even build their own tent. It's awesome what they do. But you have one of them test positive, you could have that entire group now in quarantine. So have your backup plans in place. Even if, now you got zombies in the circus tent, you got something. I'm not saying zombies are a lazy way to fall back on, but it's always a route. Have a couple spare zombie prosthetics, masks, whatever hanging around, so you got an empty spot, just throw a zombie in. They fit just about anywhere, and as long as their makeup looks good, you can put them in whatever costume, and they usually kind of fit. So just a thought there, instead of your black-robed person that pops in to cover for somebody's bathroom break, maybe have a zombie that pops in for somebody that's on quarantine. Just a thought. Also, a third huge topic to think about is the regulatory side of things. It's entirely possible, it looks like some of the states may be going back into lockdown statuses. And that the unknown is painful this year. It's entirely possible, my state, in New Jersey, we can have the capacity of people. It's an outdoor event we run. We can do time ticketing. We can keep our people on the property within the limits for an event. However, there's still not a release for live theatrical performances. And that doesn't say indoors or outdoors. So technically, I still can't open from a regulatory standpoint, even though I could have, I believe it's 500 people on the property for the event at any given time. So know your local regulations before you start going spending money this year. And be prepared, this is terrible to say, for those regulations to be rolled back. Hopefully we don't see much more of that, but some areas honestly look like they need it if you watch the nightly news. So we'll see how that goes. On that note, you've got to start planning before you spend the money for this year, before you announce your 100% opening this year. If something changes after you say you're going to open and then you can't, do you have sponsors? How's it going to go if your sponsor pays to be all over your haunt, all over your shirts, all that, and then you can't open? They're going to ask those questions this year, and if they don't ask them, they probably should. You need a plan there. And is that just forwarding their sponsorship to the next year? Possibly. They might want a refund. So don't tie that money up until you know it's secure in its use. Your rent. I know a lot of haunts rent yearly, pay the rent in November for the next year. Look at your bank accounts. This year's going to suck. Not necessarily for attendance, but just for the decisions we have to make. And I'm not saying to make the decision one way or the other, but if you have enough in the bank to float till next year, but only if you don't start a build season and costumes and payroll right now, balance those options, weigh those choices. Is it safer to wait till next year and maybe do a little something this year online, or do some local parades? Keep your name out there. Definitely keep your name out there. The guerrilla marketing's got to be there for your brand regardless. Even if you can't open this year, you better be on Facebook Halloween Day saying Happy Halloween, we'll see you next year, keep the spirit alive, that sort of thing. And marketing in general, that's another huge one, is we all go do our marketing buys, and hopefully on a normal year I would have already pretty much had mine squared away, but this year I don't know if we can open or not, so I don't want to put the money out there yet. I've got some feelers out, I've got some quotes here and there. Like shirt printing, we already had our demo shirts for this year made. We haven't made our sponsor shirts yet. But I did this back before the thing even started. February, I had the sample shirts run. If you're doing billboards, if you're doing online, if you're doing Pandora, Spotify, radio, TV, if something changes once you put that out there, make sure you can change it back. Because just pulling the plug is going to lead to nightmares. That's going to lead to people at your front door and your door's closed and they want to get in. Now, if you're marketing from the get-go that it's online ticketing only and you have that line of communication with people to say, hey, sorry, XYZ changed, regulations changed, somebody got quarantined, whatever, and you can't open it and they know it, that's great. But if they don't know it, they're going to be there. It happens to us every year. We're an outdoor show. If it's misting or gentle rain, chance of rain, we're going to open. But if it's pouring down rain, or in case of last year, a nor'easter, year before last, nor'easter, which is like a weak tropical storm came through, we had 50 mile an hour wind gusts. I'm not putting people out in the woods in 50 mile an hour winds because a tree branch or a tree might fall down on them. I don't want to see that happen. But people still show up. We can be in the middle of legit almost tropical force winds and rains and downpours, and people show up for the Trail of Terror. I mean, it says it right there, Trail of Terror. You'd assume the trail's outdoors, and when it's raining like that, don't assume anything. You've got to be clear in your message, you've got to be clear in your communications, and you've got to have a way to change that communication if you have to. If you don't start out with time ticketing and the local regulation says you have to now, you got to be able to get that word out there. And maybe it's just changing your website, your social media, Flyers, I mean, once they go out, they're out. That's gone. You can change flyers, but what's in people's hands on the refrigerators, what it says is what it says. They're going to show up to the ticket booth and they're going to demand what it says because that's what you advertised. But yeah, anything online, anything on radio, anything on TV that is playing live is assumed to be live current information, live current data. So make sure you have a way to control that before you put it out there. And that's essentially what I've got. If you can support the haunt vendors right now, do it. They're pretty much all going to be hurting this year because none of them had the trade shows. A lot of them, myself included, we had flights and rooms and all either booked or almost booked, and hopefully there's refunds and transfers, but there's never guarantees. I've had 3 different trips canceled this year due to this. Kicking myself for not getting a haunt con this year because clearly that's the con of this year. Support your traveling actors and all that. Maybe you can't get them to come to your haunt, but maybe you can do some online advertising with them. Get them to do a video for your Facebook for your haunt, a video for your TikTok. Although, be careful with TikTok. If you haven't seen, there's some security issues going on there, and that's not just a Trump thing. That is the IT industry is waving a flag. So don't put all of your money in that bucket for advertising. Heck of a year, 2020. That's all I've got. Wish everyone well. I wish everyone to be safe out there. Wear your mask so we can have Halloween. And just keep in mind, even if everything is canceled this year, you can't cancel Halloween because Halloween is in the heart. Halloween is, it's fall, it's crisp air, it's leaves, it's pumpkins and jack-o'-lanterns, and if you're like me, pumpkin spice everything. It's your decorations at home. It's giving, your kids, your friends' kids some candy, even if it's not traditional door-to-door trick-or-treat. We can still make Halloween happen. We're a creative bunch of people. If you've ever been to a haunt, that's pretty obvious. So we can make Halloween happen, even if it's a little bit different this year. Can't cancel that.